Good afternoon from my side as well, and thank you for being with us on our session, Shrinking Civic Space Online Amid Domestic and Global Crackdowns. My name is Aida Ajanović, and I will be leading today's conversation. We were able to hear Maggie this morning presenting the digital rights violations annual report, and what we are witnessing through the entire Southeast Europe and Turkey is a worrying pattern. I would say it's like digital spaces that once enabled us, enabled civic participation, public debate, and activism are now becoming increasingly hostile. And we've heard what is happening. Journalists, NGOs, activists, minority groups, fact-checkers, they face levels of online harassment, censorship, smear campaigns, surveillance, political pressure, and I think the number of these threats and pressures we can kind of continue counting. And what used to be, I don't know, a couple of years ago, maybe an isolated incident, now actually forms coordinated attack or ecosystem of suppression, which is like online mobs that flood social media with the threats. We heard about the court blocks, contact and account, platforms that are actually comply with the political pressure, and what we've seen, what we've heard from the panel before, and what Alba was saying, they are not reacting for, I guess, for the other side, but for complying definitely for what the governments are asking and requiring. So this shrinking of civic spaces, I believe, is definitely not just a digital phenomena, but it's also directly affects the safety and legitimacy and democratic participation, and it shapes how citizens speak, how they protest, how they behave online. So today, today's panel brings together voices from Serbia and Kosovo, yes, and our colleague online from Turkey, which each facing their own versions of this kind of pressure, but also, I would say, showing extraordinary resilience. And before I shortly introduce our speakers, I just wanted to say we're planning to have one more panelist to participate. It was Jenny Karaj from Albania, the LGBT rights activist, and someone that leads Alianza, the LGBT organization in Albania, but due to everything what is happening at the moment in Albania, and Maggie was talking about this, about the huge amount of pressures the CSOs are facing today because of the law, the gender equality law. She was at the end not able to come and to participate, which I believe it's important to mention how this really reflects to our lives, and just like on a daily basis on what we agreed to do a month ago and how easily it can be changed. So shortly introducing speakers, we have our colleague Tijana Uzelac from BIRN Serbia, media researcher, and in this case digital rights monitor for Serbia. You will see she documented coordinated harassments of journalists, slap lawsuits, platform manipulations, surveillance, targeting students and activists, many other things happening in Serbia in the last year. Maybe someone who does not need that much of introduction, but our colleague Kreshnik Gashi, editor in chief of Kallxo, leads, I would say, one of the most influential investigative newsrooms in the region, reporting on high corruption cases and high-risk cases while navigating this entire political polarization within the country, and I would say online pressure and attacks. And our colleague from Turkey, which is joining us online, Hamdi, Firat, Buyuk, editor on the BIRN's regional flagship media, Balkan Insight. I would say reporting from one of the most restrictive digital environments in the region, where courts block online content, platforms comply with government's orders, and communication blackouts accompany protests and some other politically sensitive events. Thank you all for joining this conversation. And to kind of open up this conversation, what I'd like you to connect maybe to your personal experience with what report kind of captures on the regional level. In a sense, all your countries are appear in the report with the severe cases documented. What would be one example, like from the past year, that you can think of that would kind of best illustrate how the civic space is shrinking? In a sense, what made this case particularly significant? How did it impact not just your work, but maybe how do you see that impact the communities, and like what happened after it, in a sense of did this case spill into the maybe offline intimidation or consequences? So whoever wants to go first, please, Tijana.
Okay, thank you, Aida, for introduction. And for Serbia, it is really clear answer for this year. What highlighted this year, it's student-led protests. In this year, we have over 1,000 protests in different cities in Serbia, and many large protests during this period of time, which actually we live in Serbia right now in really politically polarized society, and those tensions are actually highlighted especially right now because we have almost a year-long protest, actually not almost, over a year-long protest right now in this moment, and we captured only a fragment of those protests in this report. And over 60% of all our cases in this year's digital report is related somehow to student-led protests, whether it's coming from political parties, especially ruling political party, Serbian Progressive Party, or tabloids and pro-regime media. Those attacks targets are actually journalists, citizens, civil society, activists. Everyone on the other side are actually the targets of these attacks. Especially important is 92% of the targets that are coming from political parties and from tabloids are actually citizens, activists, and journalists. And 62% of citizens is actually targets of those cases. So yes, we live in really politically polarized society at this moment after the collapse of a canopy in Novi Sad on the 1st of November in 2024. And the first protest started 22 days after that. Because some politicians from the ruling party attacked students in front of faculty who paid tribute to the victims of collapse of the canopy. And for a year now, we have ongoing protests and had over thousands of protests during this period of time. And the main request of those protests is to identify those who are responsible for the collapse of a canopy, and people actually express their dissatisfaction with the authority and because of decades of corruptions in Serbia. So that's a quick introduction, and I leave it time for other participants here.
Thank you, Tijana. Kreshnik, is there something that was a real example for Kosovo that is related to the digital rights violations and that is kind of showing how this civic space is shrinking?
Thank you, Aida. I will continue in Albanian, so I will be much comfortable to talk. Absolutisht, shambulli I parës është shambulli më eklatant I cili tregon degradimin e skajshëm të audiencës publike në Kosovë, është ai me zgjedhjet e fundit të cilat I kemi pas, zgjedhjet qendrore në vitin 2018, në shkurt të këtij viti. Arsyeja pse po e them këto është për shkak se I gjithë diskursi publik I cili është mbajtur në këto zgjedhje është karakterizuar me një gjuhë dehumanizuese për kundër kandidatët, është karakterizuar me një gjuhë të urrëties ndaj aktivistëve të shoqërisë civile edhe me një gjuhë të urrëties ndaj gazetarëve dhe aktivistëve të cilët kanë qenë kritik ndaj pushtetit dhe të cilët kanë synuar me kritikuar në mënyrë aktive. Kjo ka ndodhur për shkak të një teknike e cila është zgjedhur prej partive më të mëdha në vendin tonë që me ul standardin e debatit publik në vendin tonë dhe me përdor gjuhën e urrëties si mjet për mi fitu zgjedhjet. Ky degradim I cili ka ndodhur në vendin tonë është një hap mbrapa, kisha me thujt në demokracinë tonë, dhe është një hap mbrapa për të cilin fajtorët kryesorët janë politikantë, të cilët kanë ushqy audiencën online tutje që duke përdor teknikën e dehumanizimit me I sulmu kundërshtar politik dhe çdo zog kritik I cili është ndodhur. Fatkeqësia më e madhe këtu është që shteti ka tentuar me ndalë këtë gjuhë dehumanizuese, ka tentuar me marrë masa që politikanët e cilët janë duke përqash shtinë dhe janë duke shpërfaqë gjuhë të urrëties me ndëshku me gjoba, mirë po gjobat nuk kanë pas ndonjë rezultat të madh, dhe fatkeqësia më e madhe është që politikanët I kanë pagu gjobat duke I përdorur mjetet e buxhetit të Kosovës. Pra, ata janë ndëshku dhe I kanë pagu dënimet duke I përdorur mjetet e cilat I kanë fitu prej buxhetit të Kosovës si parti politike. Ajo që është shumë e rëndësishme është që politikanët kanë gjetë një ambient të papërgatitur për këtë gjuhë të urrëties, dhe fatkeqësia më e madhe është që kjo pastaj është prodhuar edhe në dhunë fizike. Pra vitin e fundit ne kemi pas rritje të sulmeve fizike ndaj gazetarëve në Kosovë, kemi pas po ashtu rritje të gjuhës së urrëties ndaj gazetarëve dhe veprime konkrete në këtë rritem. Mendoj që ky është një rast modeli I cili neve na tregon që kur vullneti politik për me prish audiencën, për me prish demokracinë është I lartë, kemi me degradu në këto elemente. Unë shpresoj shumë që në zgjedhjet të cilat do t'i kemi gjatë këtij viti, partitë politike do të reflektojnë që gjuhën e urrëties mos ta kenë mjetin kryesor për me fitu zgjedhjet, por ta kenë një program politik dhe të synojnë me mbrojt audiencën e cila vepron në vendin tonë.
I would say terrible example, yes. But I understand what you are saying. Hi, Firat, can you hear us well? For some reason.
I'm today joining you online. So as Aida said, we have been following digital rights developments in the region and in Turkey for many years. And after Aida's introduction, I think I can fairly say that Turkey is kind of a showcase study how digital rights and on internet freedoms deteriorated in the region in a worst possible way. So in Turkey, we saw many worsening examples and worrying examples in the past year as well. But if I need to give one example, I should say that after the protest started right after the arrest of Istanbul mayor and opposition's presidential candidate Ekrem İmamoğlu, the government shut down internet. in Istanbul and in other cities. So journalists, ordinary citizens, protesters, activists, and politicians were not able to use the internet, organize the protests, share information. Right, even it was a problem to publish their news articles online, as you can find examples in our report. So, I mean, the government, in parallel with the deteriorating situation in terms of democracy, rule of law, and civic participation, can easily block internet in Turkey, and that's thanks to the draconian laws and regulations that pass in last 5 years, including misinformation law, social media law, or we have a new law, cybersecurity law, and there are many other laws in making at the moment in Turkey. So Turkey has one of the, as I said, showcase scenarios, and it exemplified in aftermath of the arrest of opposition mayor and presidential candidate Ekrem İmamoğlu. Of course, that was not the only case, and there are too many tactics of digital repression in Turkey. First of all, I should mention court order access blocks and removals, connectivity outages, judicial harassment, and unfortunately, platforms' compliance under threat and under the current laws. Of course, that there is a significant regulatory overreach in Turkey. It doesn't end in Turkey as well, I must say. There is also a transnational aspect of Turkey's online crackdown. Aftermath of the death of the Fethullah Gülen, hundreds of accounts blocked. I mean, they blocked the access to those accounts from Turkey. Not all those accounts were owned by affiliated Gülenists, but also journalists in exile, activists in exile, or politicians in exile. So that's also a transnational pressure. There is a morality policing recently in Turkey. The government blocks content or asks social platforms, digital platforms to remove the contents, including series, movies, for family values, obscenity, or other moral values. So these are the main digital repression tactics. And if I must give an example, again, I should highlight the example of Ekrem İmamoğlu.
Thank you so much, Firat. That definitely the tactics was like the following topics that I wanted to discuss, and which of these that we heard of in your environments, have become more common and or the most dangerous for the civic actors. And I believe that Turkey is definitely a specific case in all of this, and it's differently, I guess, not just reflecting on the civic space, but the governments are reacting and conducting measures that are a bit of a different than the other countries. So maybe we can stay with you, Firat, for just a bit longer to tell me, like, what do you see as the most dangerous one, and how really affects on what you are doing, for example, daily, or your colleagues from Turkey, and like, are there patterns that are kind of repeating, and in which conditions are there, like the same or similar circumstances that are provoking these kind of measures?
Well, from a journalistic point of view, I must say that the most worrying tactic is the access blocks and digital platforms' compliance with the government's requests. I mean, only last year, more than 1 million online content was blocked in Turkey. And an important part of those were news articles or social media posts belonged to journalists, media houses, activists, academics or politicians. So this really harms the civic participation online, and unfortunately the government of President Erdogan can do whatever they want, not only in physical level, but also in online world. So when the government order an access block, the courts are very politicized and they immediately issue an order for access block, and within 48 hours, the digital media platforms respect those decisions. We, as BIRN, we also face several court decisions. So a court, actually not a court, several courts in different cities order us to remove some content. That was a continuation of an investigation we published several years ago about an organized crime group leader in Turkey who currently lives in Greece. So the court asked us to remove those articles for protection of private life. We didn't remove any articles because we are not based in Turkey and we do not have to respect those court decisions. But our colleagues in Turkey face similar tactics and similar court decisions every day. So every day, thousands of, court decisions issued, and media outlets have to remove those articles. Journalists are losing their social media accounts just because of police requests. Courts can issue access blocks to those accounts. One of the examples you can find in our report is Kurdish investigative journalist Rushan Takva. His accounts were blocked in Turkey several times, and the prosecutor's office and the courts, also gendarmerie, didn't give any single reasons for these access blocks. His accounts were blocked for national security for unknown reasons. So this is the most worrying example, and unfortunately, I don't know how this will end because there is also legal ground thanks to these new laws and regulations. And most worryingly for the region, in my opinion, Turkey and Erdogan are role models for other autocratic governments or illiberal governments in the region. And I'm afraid that other countries in the region will follow this direction because now they have a textbook how they can crack down internet. So, yeah, maybe I can stop there and we can continue later with your questions.
Thank you so much. So, Tijana, Kreshnik is Erdogan leading example on how governments of Kosovo or Serbia should regulate this specific area.
Mendoj që në aspektin kulturor nuk dallojnë nivelet politike shumë për kësaj përket vlerave dhe qasjes në raport me trajtimin e mediave. Pra, qëllimi kryesor është që në vazhdimsi mediat me mbyll dhe hapësira e tyre me qenë sa më e vogël për operim. Fatkeqësisht ose për fatin e keq të politikanëve të Ballkanit, të cilët nuk dallojnë shumë për ka mendësia me mendësinë e Erdoganit, misionet ndërkombëtare dhe orientimi euroatlantik nuk i lejon shumë që publikisht me thonë qasjen që janë pro mbylljes dhe pro cenzurës në media. Mirë, po ne kemi pas në Kosovë një tentativë që duke përdorur një ligj për komisionin e pavarur për media, qeveria seriozisht me rreziku lirinë e shprehjes dhe seriozisht me rreziku pavarësinë e mediave online, dhe kjo na tregon se si ka qenë qasja e pushtetit në vitin 2024 dhe si duke tentuar me ndërtu një ligj antikushtetues kanë tentuar që sferën e mediave online thjesht me cenzuru dhe me vendos në kontrollin politik. Ne jemi të vetëdijshëm që në krejt Ballkanin politika është kujdestare e cenzurës dhe është kujdestare e një fryme e cila lirinë e shprehjes nuk e merr si pjesë të shtetëndërtimit, po e merr si pjesë të luftës politike dhe synon me ndërprej ata. Ajo që ka mund me konstatu po ashtu është që vullneti politik në krejt Balkanin nuk ka qenë që me garantu një ambient të sigurt edhe të qetë edhe të përshtatshëm për gazetarët, mirë po ajo që ka në mrim me identifiku gjatë gjithë kohës është një tentativë që gazetarët nëpërmjet dehumanizimit dhe demonizimit të tyre me u shëndru në cak të lehtë për sulmet edhe për thjesht puna e tyre me ul kredibiliteti. Ajo që ka mujt me thonë për këtu është shumë e thjesht që në punën tonë të përditshme për shkak të kësaj gjuhe e cila synon punën tonë me eminu dhe me dehumanizu, ne çdo ditë më shumë duhet me raportu prej zyrave tona dhe duhet çdo ditë më shumë gazetarët me u shmang prej punës me komunitetin. Realisht qëllimi i këtyre njerëzve është që gazetarët me pas sa më pak takime dhe burime me komunitetin, mirë që të shmanget raportimi si i tillë dhe kredibil. Unë kisha me thonë që lufta me burimet dhe raportimi për gjuhën e urrejtjes, raportimi për dezinformatën është njëra prej veprimtarive më të rrezikshme për gazetarët në rajonin e Ballkanit. Dhe këta nuk po e them pa e pas të provume në lëkurën time. Në krejt karrierën time 18 vjeçare jam marrë me më shumë se 300 raste të politikanëve të korruptum dhe në backgroundin tem kam hulumtu dhe kam dërgu para institucioneve të drejtësisë, krye prokuror, kryetar të gjykatave deri në nivel të zëvendës kryeministrit. Mirë po, problemet serioze me sigurinë time personale dhe të ekipit nuk i kom pas shumë kur kom ekspozu rrjetet të drogës, rrjetet të krimit organizuar. Problemet ka nis kur kemi nis programet e fact checkut dhe programet e hulumtimit të rrjedhës së dezinformatës. Në momentet kur ne kemi nis me ekspozu dezinformatën e cila vjen prej Kremlinit në rajonin e Ballkanit. Në momentin kur ne kemi nisë me ekspozu dezinformatën kineze, dezinformatën religjioze dhe përdorimin e këtyre resurseve për me e dezinformu dhe me arrit qëllime politike në Ballkan, ne thjesht jemi dehumanizu dhe duke përdor teknikat e njëjta, ata kanë synu me prish vlerën tonë kryesore. Cila është vlera kryesore një gazetari, është besueshmëria e publikut. Duke tentu me dëmtu besueshmërinë e publikut dhe kredibilitetin ton, ata e kanë rrit urrejtjen e komunitetit. Dhe si rezultati i kësaj, komunitetet të caktuara, të cilat janë viktima të dezinformatës në krejt rajonin, sot i urrejnë gazetarët. Jo për faktin se ata kanë raportu keq, po për faktin se gjuha e urrejtjes e prodhume prej këtyre burimeve kanë ndiku shumë të ta dhe kanë rri thjesht me ndryshu qasjen. Dhe sot ne mujmë lirshëm e konstatu që kemi zona dhe hapësira në cilat ne nuk ndihemi të sigurt të shkojmë të raportojmë. Jo për faktin se ne nuk jemi profesional, po për faktin se atje komuniteti nuk është mikpritës për gazetarët dhe për profesionin tonë, dhe këto e kemi përjetuar dhe me sulme direkte fizike që na kanë ndodhur në komunitetet e caktuara. Sot pas çdo hulumtimi të madh, pas çdo raportimi në cilin na ekspozojmë burimet të dezinformatës, investime në prodhimin e dezinformatës, investime të dyshimta edhe në platformat të caktuara, ne përballemi me sulme direkte, qoftë prej grupeve religjioze, qoftë prej grupeve të ekstremit të djathtë, qoftë prej këtyre platformave të cilat tashmë dihet botërisht qysh financohen dhe ndikohen direkt prej Kremlinit. Çka është më e rëndësishme me u cek në këtë drejtim, është fakti që ky sulm, kjo politikë e sulmeve ndaj gazetarëve nuk e ka gjetë një mbrojtje prej institucioneve të shtetit dhe thjesht gazetarët dhe rrjetet e fact-checkerave janë lënë, kisha me quajt në baltë për shkak të mungesës profesionalizmit të institucioneve të cilat ish dasht me garantu mbrojtjen. Gjatë këtij viti, si ekip kemi dëshmu në disa raste mos profesionalizmin e institucioneve të sundimit të ligjit, veçanërisht prokurisë në hetimin profesional të rasteve kur gazetarët janë viktima të dhunës online. Dhe kjo është një alarm, dhe kjo është një nevojë shumë emergjente që këto mekanizma me u përmirësu. Pse po e them këtë? Në disa prej rasteve të cilat I kemi analizuar dhe I kemi studiu, e cilat janë trajtuar për Prokurisë së Shtetit në Kosovë, Prokuria dështon me zbulu elementin kryesor të sulmeve online, që është motivi ideologjik. Pra, nuk ka sulm online pa e pas një motiv prapa. Dhe nëse sulmet online ndaj gazetarëve dhe ndaj aktivistëve të shoqërisë civile hetohen pa e zbulu burimin ideologjik, pa I zbulu arsyet, ne nuk kemi me mri me garantu mbrojtje. Pra, nuk ka një kërcënim online ndaj një gazetari pa e pas një burim ideologjik kjo punë. Dhe mendoj që në këtë situatë, mos performanca e duhur e institucioneve, ka kriju një situatë ku njerëzit janë të uni sot shumë atë friksuar për me dalë edhe me dhanë mendimin e vetë, dhe janë të uni shumë atë izoluar për me mri edhe me dalë me shpreh mendimet e veta në qoftë në media, qoftë në platforma sociale. Imagjinoni si është gjendja tash me njerëz të cilët dëshirojnë me pru fryma të reja dhe fryma reformuese në vendin tonë. Imagjinoni se çka ndodh me njerëzit të cilët synojnë mi promovu liritë dhe drejtat themelore të njerëzit. Pra, ne përmbyllum tash një fushat për zgjedhjet komunale dhe nuk kemi pas një disbalans të madh midis kandidatëve gra për kryetarët komunave dhe kandidatëve burra për kryetarët komunave. Dhe arsyeja kryesore pse gratë nuk vazhdojnë me qenë në politikën e Kosovës është gjuha e urrejtjes e cila shpërndahet ndaj tyre, gjuha dhe lajmet e rreme të cilat shpërndahen ndaj tyre. Ne po ashtu kemi mri me konstatu që në diskursin publik ka pas një cenzurë të hatashme për politikanët të cilët dëshirojnë me qenë promotor dhe mbrojtës të drejtave të komunitetit LGBTI+. Në vitin 2017, kur I kemi testu, rreth 40% e politikanëve në Kosovë kanë refuzu me folë për të drejtat e komunitetit LGBTI+. Në vitin 2025, ky numër është rrit të I mase, pra kemi gjetë shumë pak politikanë të cilët kanë guxuar me folë për drejtat e këtij komuniteti, ndërsa në anën tjetër, ata të cilët kanë folë kundër të drejtave të komunitetit LGBTI+, dhe ata të cilët janë deklaru kundër edhe martesave të gjinisë së njëjtë, edhe IVF-it, kanë qenë komunitet shumë në rritje në radhët e politikës të Kosovës, dhe në anën tjetër, prej pozicionit të fact checkers, kemi identifiku që ata pak zona të cilët kanë qenë pro të drejtave të komunitetit LGBTI+, dhe mbrojtjes së vlerave të tyre, thjesht kanë qenë viktima të skajshme, të lajmeve të rrejshme, të gjuhës së urrejtjes dhe të fushatave të cilat kanë përdorur çdo mjet, përfshirë inteligjencën artificiale, për mi vendosë këta njerëz në pozicione jo të mira në raport me votuesit e vet. Pra, mendoj që jemi të operuar në një ambient I cili definitivisht është I pasigurt për gazetarët dhe I cili në rast se nuk e merr vëmendjen e nevojshme ka me e dërgu shoqërinë drejt një radikalizimit të debatit, dhe e dyta ka me vazhdu me rrit numrin e njerëzve të cilët vetë cenzurohen për me dhanë mendimin e vetë në rrjetet sociale, po dhe në debatin publik, për shkak se thjesht janë të uni të rrezikum dhe janë të uni të pambrojtur në raport me internetin dhe në raport me ato që është u zhvilluar mbar botën.
Thank you so much, Kreshnik. I mean, we definitely, I'm sorry, just to turn this off for me. We are definitely seeing like digital rights violations. They are definitely spill out into the real life in a sense of threats and intimidations and these civic actors, including journalists and fact-checkers and or whoever is kind of willing to speak up on the certain topics, have their life under the pressure, and governments are moving towards specific actions. But then on the other side, and this is just with the reserve on the other, when I'm saying on the other side, like because of what happened in Serbia, and people, students mostly, have been protesting for the last year, and this looks like trying to speak up very loudly against everything that is happening. It is a sort of resilience. How do we, how do you, Tijana, see this entire situation in Serbia in these kind of contexts, especially what Firat and Kreshnik were saying? Like, is there a space for journalists and civic activists and fact checkers to kind of speak up the truth without being, their lives being jeopardized online and offline? And I don't like these kind of divisions, because I believe that we all should always start from the one same premises, is that digital rights are part of the basic human rights, and it's not something that we should kind of divide. But Tijana, please.
That were mentioned in Turkey and Kosovo is really relatable compared to Serbia, and I want to agree with you and to say that that space, a civil space to express and freedom of expression is really shrinking in Serbia, and by day there is less space to express openly in media, to express for students, for Protestants, for activists, to express their opinions on social media in Serbia, because many people in previous years were detained because of expressing their opinion publicly, especially on Twitter, on Instagram. Police detained them because of their tweets, for example, and so yes, there is a shrinking space, civic space to express the opinion. Related to journalists, they have some kind of space to provide opinions and to write news, but we have to compare. There is one very specific gap in Serbia to understand the journalists in media in Serbia. There is one side, we have two polarized extreme side in Serbia, in media, in journalism. One side is actually, we call it independent. They are providing information about our government, about our authorities, and their targets of attacks they're coming from the other side, from tabloids. And this gap is really deep at this moment, because we have conflicted sides right now in Serbian media. One, the media that is supporting protests in Serbia, and on the other sides, media in Serbia, tabloids, pro-regime media that is openly criticized and provide private information about students, about journalists, etc. in those tabloids. And they're supporting also regime's government that we have in Serbia. What I wanted to say about this gap is that tabloids in Serbia actually provide private information, and we have a lot of privacy abuse in Serbia, and providing private information should not be in the media. We have a lot of cases in previous year related to publishing personal information, information related to family members, ID cards, passport information, or actually picture from passport. And we can only guess where these tabloids are getting this information from, who is providing with this information to the media, who has the access to actually those information. So yes, we can see some kind of collaboration between tabloids and political actors in the and security information agency in Serbia, and they use these tactics as a threat to intimidate the political actors, opponents, to threaten other journalists, independent journalists, to threaten students, political activists, and they don't know if their private information will publish in those tabloids the next day. We had a lot of examples. We had an example in Serbia airport that is provided by a surveillance camera about one political activist. He was traveling, and we had a news in one tabloid saying that he is traveling, and where is he traveling, with all the information that about his travel and at this moment. Actually, also students insist on this one. They insist they don't have a leader, and they insist on that their movement does not have the name. They don't have a face that represents all the students. So in Serbia, we have a lot of different students that are going to television, they are giving the interviews, etc. But they never refer to themselves as my name is XX. They refer to themselves as I'm student from that faculty. I'm coming from that faculty, and I represent that faculty and university, for etc. in Belgrade. So what is happening in tabloids that day after those interviews or television program, tabloid media is actually attacking them, providing their full name and surname, information about their family members, criticize them, post their private information, such as like Instagram posts of 3 years ago, that is made 3 years ago. So we have a lot of intrusive tabloids perspective on this in these students' protests. Also, I wanted to say one important thing, that many people in Serbia, not only journalists but people that work in public institutions, public companies, is fired in previous years only because they work in public institutions and they were liking social media, tweets, photos on Instagram, on Twitter, etc., from pages that is supporting protests, and they only liked actually those photos or videos, and they were delivered the fire next day on their jobs. And right now, BIRN Serbia is collecting those cases of people that were fired during this period. So yes, I would upgrade this. Not only journalists are threatened in this situation in Serbia that's going on, but all different parts of civil society, such as activists, students, citizens, regular citizens, and just people who obtain in a civil space and public space and actually provide their opinion online.
Thank you so much, Tijana. Maybe there's someone from the audience that is coming from the other countries that are not represented on the panel and might want to share some of their own experience or give a comment or anything. Yes, please.
Should I stand up?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
I think I can speak with respect to Macedonia that I think that shrinking civic space doesn't necessarily come with direct attack towards civil society organizations and journalists. So I would give a recommendation when the USAID funds were cut and the new administration was appointed in the United States of America. We've heard a lot of disinformation coming from the administration that actually fueled a lot of anti-democratic movements in Macedonia. So every single narrative that was supported by those initiatives and was confirmed by the administration, it actually shrinked the space of civil society organization acting. I'll give you an example. For example, the Minister of Health, or rather the Secretary of Health of the USA, has continuously fueled disinformation regarding public health. And those were narratives that were present for numerous years in Macedonia, and then it gave them a reprieve, or rather a recognition of those kind of narratives. So every time now that we are talking about public health, every single initiative ends up in the bin because politicians are afraid to come up to those anti-democratic initiatives and to speak about public health, for example, the HPV vaccines. And on another note, the civic space have been shrunk when it comes to, I hate to say progressive ideologies, but because they are not progressive ideologies, they're just human rights. When we are discussing the women's rights movement and the LGBTQ movement and etc., those anti-democratic movements managed to get the MPs, the members of parliament, not to adopt the law on gender equality, which was not the same for Albania, for example. So I think that the shrinking of civic space in Macedonia, it comes with direct attack towards civil society organization, but also with confirming narratives from politicians, even the media, that every single initiative proposed to adopt some policies that might be beneficial to its citizens, it's going against those initiatives that are supported by the government or by far-right movements. And just another note, I have a question, because you have mentioned that you have made a research and this information is coming from China, from Russia, from Kremlin, and also the religion. Have you tracked any channels of disinformation coming from the United States and Western Europe? Because there was a research done by the European Parliament concerning anti-gender narratives that said that anti-gender narratives were fueled $1 billion over the course of 10 years regarding rights of marginalized groups. Thank you.
Before I give a word to Kreshnik, anyone else? Snatch?
Thank you so much. I was just inspired also by the comment and what you were saying, and I wanted just to put in a couple of interesting things that happened in Montenegro, for example. Maybe, I'm not sure if it happened throughout the region, but one of the tactics that I also wanted to expand was actually they try to announce us public servants, to give us a status of the public servants if we enter a certain working groups to actually participate in policy making, which was also one of the type of pressures that they tried. So we were having back and forth between the institutions to try to actually fight that one off, which was successful, I have to say. Another, which is currently ongoing, is actually, I mean, these are provisions that are being widely debated, the changes in the law for the NGOs and civil society in itself, with the provisions that were actually proposed that the owners of the NGOs, like executives, are going to respond with their personal property in certain cases. So I just wanted to
Going
actually...
through the vetting process?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if that's going to start. But I mean, last year we had this initiative, of course, we are foreign agents and whatsoever, but that didn't fly, which doesn't mean that it's not going to happen in the future, unfortunately so. But I just wanted to expand, because sometimes we are talking about all of these things that we are just, you know, not dedicating that much space to the actual infrastructure that's supporting us as organizations as well, especially because it provides this chilling effect as much as it does these other sorts of pressures, because they say, as somebody said before, we are in survival mode, more or less, and that's what I wanted to contribute as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kreshnik, do you want to reference? Ah, okay. One more question. Yes, I know the lunch started. We will try to wrap it up.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Goce from BIRN in Macedonia. I just wanted to contribute to Hamdi. He said that social media platforms are very responsive to the Turkish government and Kurds about taking down content. We were mentioning earlier this in these sessions that in our far smaller, tiny countries, they do not care about it because we are very small markets, but Turkey is a very large market. How much does he think this market incentive contributes, unfortunately for the wrong reasons, for content to be easily taken down?
Sa më rriva me kuptu pyetja prej kolegut prej Maqedonisë, a kemi mri me eksploru narrativat që quhen narrativat e ekstremit të djathtë ndaj lëvizjeve kryesisht gjinore, të cilat potencialisht mrin me ardh prej grupeve të ekstremit të djathtë në SBA. Ajo që kisha me thonë në këtë drejtim është që po në një formë kemi mri me monitoru burimet kryesore të narrativave kundër çështjeve gjinore në rajonin tonë, dhe ajo që ka muj me konstatu është që në proporcion me çështjet gjinore, narrativat kryesore në rajon janë kryesisht religjioze, pra vijnë prej religionit, dhe e dyta, ajo që ka ne si rrjetet të verifikimit të fakteve mrim me konstatuar që narrativat gjinore nuk janë elementet kryesore të cilat synojnë me nda shoqërinë. Për shkak se në rajonin e Ballkanit synimi kryesor i dezinformatës është me pas konflikte ndëretnike, dhe këto janë elementet kryesore të cilat përdoren për me inicu në vazhdimsi konfliktin ndëretnik. E dyta pastaj me pas konflikte ndërfetare dhe konflikte brenda grupeve të ndryshme fetare, dhe e treta narrativat gjithmonë dezinformuese të cilat synojnë minimin e orientimit drejt Bashkimit Evropian edhe drejt NATO-s. Në raport me Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës, ajo që ka mundem me thonë prej kontekstit Kosovës, në rast se ne mundemi me thonë që paskun pas një milion ose 100.000 euro investim për mi promovu narrativat të cilat janë kundërgjinore, në anën tjetër mundemi me konstatu që në 25 vite të ndërtimit të shtetit Kosovës, programet kryesore të cilat kanë synu barazin gjinore në vendin tonë janë financu prej USAID-it, dhe mundemi e konstatu po ashtu që një pjesë e madhe e reformës ligjore dhe ndryshimit të mentalitetit të vendit tonë vjen për shkak të një investimit të madh amerikan i cili ka ndodhur në këtë vend për mi promovu fillimisht barazin e grave në politik, pastaj barazin e grave në çështjet pronave dhe barazin e grave edhe në ambientin social dhe në atë ekonomik. Pra, ajo që na muj me konstatu prej analizave të cilat e kemi bë, është që investimi amerikan në Kosovë ka qenë shumë i madh në drejtim të promovimit të drejtave të njerëzit deri më tani dhe në drejtim të promovimit të barazisë së qytetarëve.
Thank you so much. Firat, do you want to answer to Gotte's question? And
Yeah,
I
of
wanted
course.
to actually add one more question to you as a wrap-up of the session. Of course, to the others, but especially for you, how does the resilience in Turkey look like?
Yeah.
If I may say, not to ask how you see it, but like to give us maybe examples of how that looks like on the ground.
First, answering Gotse's question, of course, that market size is very important for these digital platforms, and Turkey is 85, 56 million country, and if you compare with Balkan countries, it's much bigger. But still, I think things can be done. If we look at EU countries, there are some countries smaller than Balkan countries or slightly bigger than Balkan countries, and we can give them good examples. But in other side of the medallion, smaller Balkan countries can also lead kind of internet censorship, and they can also work with digital platforms, in my opinion. Because it's all about millions. If we talk about Macedonia, I think we are still talking about millions of euros. But if you think about Romania, I think we are talking about billions. So these are still profitable markets. We are talking about millions of people. And unfortunately, there are some examples. Countries just follow each other. Just look at this foreign influence agent law. It started in Russia. Then it went to Georgia, Bosnia, then it came to Turkey, Hungary, Poland. They are just following each other, and they can easily do the same when it comes to digital platforms and the government's censorship. So in my opinion, market size is important. I definitely agree. But I also think that these are business companies and they can also do things for smaller countries as well, in my opinion. So when it comes to resilience, we are talking about this a lot with our colleagues in Turkey and also colleagues in exile. There is still something to do, of course. And despite of every problem, all the pressures and this lawfare, if we call it, is a legal, war on media and internet freedoms, there is still an independent media in Turkey. I think even this shows the resilience of Turkish media and civil society. So, but of course, there is a lot to do. If you ask us a concrete example, I can tell you that I can give an example from, Diyarbakir. There is Mesopotamia News Agency. There is website, and their social media accounts are blocked maybe on weekly basis. But they continue to operate. They open new social media accounts, and they use a new URL address for their news agency, and they continue to operate. This is the same for other journalists and other media outlets as well from all parts of Turkey. They still try to do their own jobs. Or when government appointed a trustee to Tele1 TV only few weeks ago, journalists resigned from the television channel and they started to open their own channel and they are airing shows on YouTube. So resilience is very high Turkey, as much as the government pressure. And there is a very grim situation in Turkey. We try to be hopeful for the future, but I must say that even the existence of an independent media in Turkey is the proof of resiliency of Turkish media and journalists.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Firat, for this. So Tijana, Kreshnik, maybe just in short, so that we see also a hope, maybe one strategy. It's an organizational or personal strategy that actually works and that will keep the journalists, the activists safe, and maybe the online world safe or safer, civic space safer. Thank you.
Okay, so it's really hard to give one recommendation in such a complex society right now, but I think that one thing that we can keep doing is keep protecting our journalists. Right now we have a journalistic association, independent journalist association in Serbia that legally helps journalists and activists. So we have to keep a track of all the cases where journalists have been attacked, so they can be provided with adequate legal protection in this region. So we can keep working on that and provide more lawyers and etc. to our journalists, protect our journalists, yes.
Po jam shumë i shkurt për me tregu që në rast se mbajmë aktivizmin tonë dhe kërkesën tonë në raport me të drejtat tona digjitale dhe me ato që neve na garantojnë kushtetutat tona, që është liria e shprehjes, mendoj që kemi me vazhdu me shtu presionin të institucionet publike dhe ata me vazhdu me operu në raport me këtë punë. Në rast se marrëm vetëm rezultatet e këtij projekti, muj me pa shumë qartë standardet të cilat për fushën e Kosovës janë ndërtu. Pra, kur kemi nisë projektin, kemi gjetë që në Kosovë kamerat biometrike janë importu pas një procedurë ligjore dhe çdo kush ka mujt me pas në oborën e shtëpisë vet një kamerë biometrike e cila importon dhona private të njerëzve. Kjo ma nuk mundet me ndodhë në Kosovë për shkak të presionit publik, rekomandimeve dhe veprimeve konkrete të cilat janë ndërmarrë për institucionet për me ndalu këto. Në rast se marrëm që mediat e kemi pa që standardet e cilat i kanë pas mediat 4 vite ma herët dhe standardet e cilat i kanë sot në raport me privatësinë kanë ndryshu, pra sot kemi ma pak fëmijë identitetin e tyre të publikum në mediat kredibile të vendit tonë, kemi ma pak keqpërdërim të dhënave në media dhe fatmirësisht kemi edhe raste modele ku mediat janë ndëshku për rrjedhjen e dhënave private në raport me privatësinë. Po synojmë që me shtu presionin që hetimet të cilat duhet më zhvillu në raport me sulmet dhe me kërcimet e gazetarëve me u zhvillu në mënyrë modele, e po ashtu po synojmë që thjesht me dekuraju publikun dhe me eduku publikun që mos me ra viktim e fushatave të cilat synojnë me rrit urrëtitjen ndaj gazetarëve, por më ju tregu atyre që janë viktima edhe të rasteve të abuzimit të drejtave tyre për mekanizmat e ankesës që mund me qenë agjencia e privatësisë dhe elementet e tjera. Mendoj që megjithatë në fund të tunelit ka shpresë, megjithatë për shkak të orientimit të cilën si shoqëri e kemi për vlerat evropiane, mendoj që qeverit totalitariste dhe njerëzit të cilët po synojnë me pengu zhvillimin e demokracisë në rajonin ton kanë mu dorëzu dhe thjesht kemi me mri me shku për para drejt standardeve të cilat i promovon Bashkimi Evropian dhe drejtave dhe lirive të njeriut.
Thank you so much. So just to shortly conclude, digital repression is growing, but so does the resilience, and it's present and it's not going anywhere. Thank you so much to all three of you for sharing your thoughts and your hard work related to this topic, but thanks to all of you who stayed with us here. As a reward, the lunch is on the first floor. So thank you so much.